of 2020, a year that's not going fast enough for many of us. So let me introduce Rick, who will then introduce our special guest and co-moderator on the phototherapy Facebook page. Rick, good morning.
Well, good morning. You always say good morning. Your mother would be proud of you. You have good manners. Good afternoon, right? Although it was afternoon yesterday, or when we did the last happy hour, and you said good morning. So,
yeah, when you and Juan and I were prepping, I did say good morning.
Yeah. So anyway, I can't see this live on the Facebook group page, but I guess it will show up. But we want to thank our members for tuning in again. We love doing these live events. The Facebook group hit 2,000 people, 2,000 members yesterday, which is rather amazing. We started this during the in March during the pandemic, and so it's a good thing, I think, that came out of a really bad thing. So we're so glad you guys are here. And if you have friends who missed this, you can watch it on the YouTube. We actually have a phototherapy, motivation, and wisdom YouTube channel. So we want to thank Alex for setting it up, and Jim Griggs. Alex is a moderator, and Jim Griggs is my good friend. He had me out speaking to his awesome group of 2,500 members in Kansas, in this big, what was it, an opera house, a movie theater?
Opera house. Yep.
It was, I mean, this is one of the best locations I've ever been in. I was treated like a king. You guys took me around. I played some guitar with some of your friends. So we're going to get right to it. Just to remind people that they could ask questions and comments right on our Facebook group page, and we definitely want to hear from you. And the reason I'm in an orange shirt, I'm getting ready to go on my bike ride, and I don't want to be hit. So unless I forgot to wear my orange shirt. So, Alec, I still can't see it.
I think you just need. I see it, so you just need to refresh your screen.
Okay, I got it. Okay, Nathan Goldberg is here. Gretchen's here. Gretchen and Steve. Hey, Steve. Steve's on everything. And Nathan's on a lot of things. So we're going to kick it off. Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Jim, who has a wonderful presentation on shooting close to home. You know, you don't have to go to like the bottom of the world or the other side of the planet to get great shots. So he's going to talk about that and a bunch of other things. So I really think you're going to enjoy his presentation. So take it away, my good friend Jim Griggs.
All right. Thanks, Rick. Basically, I think on the screen right now you see a bunch of slides in a trash can, and I took advantage of the pandemic to go back and digitize a bunch of slides, and I got rid of them basically because they were not very good. You know, they go back to 1965, but I did digitize about 9,000, mostly trips that I wanted to save and the family knew about, but I did it in a special way, and I'll play that for you. I've got a Cannon 5D2 adapted to a Nikon bellows with a Nikon lens and a Nikon slide duplicator using a Cannon 580 strobe. And first thing I do is I clean the slides off. I put them into the slide duplicator, and I shoot. And the flash goes off, does the illumination for me, TTL mode, and I end up with a slide that's a raw file about 16 megapixel, which is more than what you could get if you just scan them, or that more than the resolution than the slides originally had. You can do wildlife photography a lot of places. This is down in Peru. There's a lot of bird photography there. If you're going to go down and do bird photography, I highly recommend a gimbal mount. This is done with a gimbal and a Canon 600 millimeter lens on a 7D.
Hey, Jim, some members may not know what a gimbal head is.
Oh, a gimbal, yeah. Well, a gimbal basically, it's you're almost like you're shooting down incoming aircraft. It allows you to swivel the camera around any direction, and it basically gives you a chance to track things that are moving very quickly. And I don't know if you know about the macaws, but they are super quick. They're like jet fighters. They go by so quick. So I used a gimbal for that shot. We were shooting out of a boat here for the Jaguar. And again, 600 millimeter with the Canon 7D. And got to spend a few minutes with him. Also, the Galapagos, another place that I've been and photographed. And I'm showing you just a few shots of those. This is with a 24-105. One of the birds there, it's a...
the frigate.
Frigate. Yeah.
A giant frigate. I love it when they puff up like that.
Oh, yeah. They build a nest and they sit on there and they puff up to try and attract females and say, this is a nest I built for us. Come join me. And then if you're really a wildlife photographer, the best place in the world, as far as I'm concerned, is Africa. I mean, it's exotic, it's wild. This is with a Canton 100 to 400. Sometimes the babies were out. This is one pride we're with. They had 17 of these cubs, all about the same age, very healthy pride. This is with a Canton 600.
I like how'd you get down that low? How'd you get up that high on the next one?
Well, the down low, basically, I was shooting out of a vehicle, and these things were lined up on a ridge. So I'm shooting almost at eye level with them.
Yeah, I love that. I love seeing eye to eye and shooting eye to eye.
And this is, again, eye to eye, like you talk about doing, and I think it really gives you the impact you want. But this looks like I'm standing up in a vehicle again, and the tree limb is above me a little bit, but I'm shooting with 800 millimeters here, so it gets up pretty tight, pretty close. 800
millimeters, and this guy's in the shade?
Is in the shade. That's a 20th of a second on a beanbag.
Wow. You want to say that again for our members who are like afraid to handhold lenses?
Well, this is on a beanbag.
The beanbag helps.
Beanbag helps a lot, but it's a 20th of a second. And we have a protocol in the vehicles that we use. We basically, if somebody's shooting, you ask, can I move? And they say, no, I'm shooting. And then, okay, now you can move, but just to minimize vibration. But sun was down. It was getting late. One of the birds there, I've gotten where I really love photographing the birds because I photographed just about everything else there. But lilac-breasted roller, beautiful birds, and soft background. Again, this is Canton 600 millimeter.
This is a great shot for a lot of reasons. Not only the composition, the exposure, the catch light in the eye, and the color, but as Jim knows, these guys might be the most skittish birds in Africa. And if you think the macaws go fast, right, Jim?
These things are they call them a roller because they twist when they fly.
Yeah.
That's why they call them a roller. They're just crazy to try and track. The other thing that I like to do, if I'm photographing something really big like an elephant, I like to get tight on them. I use a big lens and get up, and I don't want to show the whole elephant. I just want to show the part of it that tells you it's an elephant. The face, the tusk, and the trunk, and that works really well. Luckily, we've been out with some black rhino in Tanzania, and these guys are a mom and a baby, and it's kind of hard to see them together. Rare to see them together. At least nuzzling is a difficult thing when you got a horn. I don't know how they can be so friendly to each other. Cheetahs in the grass, and again, I'm trying to do environmental stuff, so I show where they live and the kind of environment they're in. And the cheetahs are always in the grass prairies in Serengeti. A couple of cheetah brothers sitting on top of a termite mound. And then for scale, sometimes it's best to have somebody else in the picture. I couldn't get my wife to go out there with the cheetahs, but I did get her, coax her to go out and sit with this rock python that we found in a canyon in Arusha National Park. It had just eaten, was pretty docile, but she wouldn't let me use that for Christmas cards for some reason. I'm not sure. And this is in Ngorongoro Crater, which is 10 miles in diameter, a couple of 1,000 feet deep, and some wildebeest on a little rise. And you can see in the background the wall of the crater rising up. And again, it's kind of an environmental shot. And the little black dots that I'm pointing to right here, I don't know if you can see my arrow or not, that's a herd of Cape buffalo. It finally dawned on me about the third trip when we ran across this huge herd of wildebeest that was 3 miles by 5 miles. We were talking to a ranger on the radio. He said it was a huge herd, 1.2 million wildebeest. And I suddenly dawned on me what the Great Plains of Mid-America, where I live, used to look like 600 years ago,
right,
with the bison. Right. So now I'm gonna take you to Kansas, and I'll show you. This is 20 minutes from my house. It's a place called Maxwell Wildlife Refuge. When I first moved here in 1993, I had to check with my wife. I have a good memory, but it's just short. 1993, when I first moved here, I read about this place. This third week I went out there, and I was really impressed. It's 3,000 acres, 200 bison, plus or minus, 90 elk, plus or minus. And the people don't know elk were a plains animal before the arrival of the Europeans, who shot a lot of them and ran them into the mountains. But they were, it was a really interesting place, and I happened to get there on a morning when they were having a tour, a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. So it cost me $8. I hopped on a tram, we go out. If you've ever photographed bison in the daytime, midday, 10 or 11 o'clock, they're like a black hole. They just suck up all the light. Either you get them exposed right and everything else blows out, or you get the sky looking good and the bison's a black hole. So the other thing that they were doing out there that I didn't really care for, they had a feed truck, and they bring the feed truck out and dump feed around the tram. And so the animals are all walking around with their face buried in the grass, so you can't get good shots that way. And I finally asked Betty out there, would it be okay if I got off the tram when the animals aren't real close? She said, yeah, if they come your way, get up and get back on. So I would come back on. Well, I got off, I laid down the grass. She thought I was crazy. But I was trying to get a shot like this, something down low, and I'm shooting pretty shallow depth of field, but I want enough depth of field so you can tell that that's a bison in the background and not just a blob. So I want the horn to show just a hair. I want the animal shape and the color to show, and that way you know what it is. You don't speculate, try and figure out what it is. I still struggled with these things having their face buried in the grass when the feeders on the regular tours. So I thought I'd try the winter, and when the sun's a little lower, maybe I get better opportunity. Well, they had plexiglass on the sides of the trams, and you can't shoot through plexiglass. The back was open, so I'd always sit in the back where I could shoot from back there. But if you've shot through plexiglass, you know it distorts so bad.
Yes.
Part of the refuge has a county road going through it with cattle guards on each end, so you can drive through. And I was able to get some fairly decent shots of my own there. And I said, here's the time to invest in this place and develop it a little bit. So I made postcards for them. I had them printed somewhere. I forgot where I had it done. And I did about $100 worth of postcards and took them out there and said, here's a donation, because they had a postcard rack full of some of the ugliest photos you've ever seen in your life. And so they took my postcard pictures and started selling those and helping raise money for them. And they said, we'll pay for them. I said, no, it's a donation from me to you. You guys sell them. Well, by doing that, they finally knew my name, and I became sort of invited to go out and shoot with everybody else, or to come out there and go on the tours. And one day I was talking to Betty, and she said, we need a storage building because we have all these snow blowers and mowers and stuff in our building. It's going to cost $2,000. I just said, bingo, here's my chance. Because I'd asked about doing earlier tours, and she said 9:30. I said, no, I'm talking about early. So I basically said, give me 2 Saturday early morning tours. Last Saturday in January, first Saturday in February. She said, when? I said, we'll leave at 7 o'clock. She said, that nobody will show up. I said, they'll be there. Be out for 90 minutes. She said, that's too long because their normal tours are 45 minutes. I said, trust me, 90 minutes is perfect. Don't feed anything until we get photos, because then bring the feeder out to move them around. And I said, no plexiglass. She said, but everybody will freeze to death. I said, Betty, these are nature photographers. There are a lot of them. They're expendable. She just laughed. I said, okay, go for it. And I said, we're going to charge $25 a person. She said, that's ridiculous. Nobody will pay that. And all I could tell her was just hold my beer and watch this. We're going to make it happen. So I went back. I publicized this really big that we're going to do this. And in 2 weeks, I'd sold every spot we had out. And we had 3 trams, 14 people per tram, $25 a head, $2,100 I raised in 2 weekends. And we had a list of people wanting to go in case of a cancellation. Just before we were going to do this, Betty said $25 is too much. I said, Betty, we're sold out. We should raise the price. When you're sold out, you raise the price. And it was a rousing success. This is a picture from the very first one we did. and the lady sitting in the middle. It was 7 degrees that morning, by the way. We were a little late going out, but the lady in the middle told me, I just literally froze my buns off out there. And we were trying to figure out what to call these things, so we call them FYBO outings, freeze your buns off.
Oh, I love it.
And we do that. We've been doing them every year since then, and we're sold out. Within a week of announcing these things, the dates, we're sold out with a waiting list. And these are just some random shots of the trams and the groups that are out there doing shooting, and we have a great time and sell out every year. You can see how much better it looks, the light that looks, that kind of morning. Here's some other morning shots. I didn't get rid of those things, did I? So about the second year, we were leaving the tour center, and I looked up, and the sky above the ridge was just starting to glow. And I said, Betty, can I have the mic? Can I have your walkie-talkie? She said, sure, hand it to me. I said, Dennis, come up to the ridge with a feed truck, go along the ridge and drop off a few cubes. And she said, Dennis said, sure. When he got to where I needed him, I said, turn south, go along the ridge. So this is Dennis going along the ridge, dropping cubes to see what's following him. And we were able to get those cubes put down. We got bison on the ridge, silhouetted against the background. Here's the deal when you're doing a silhouette. Meter the sky, meter the highlights, and underexpose. That way you get these silhouettes instead of trying to get detail in the animals. You don't need it. Everybody can tell what they are from the shape. One of the images that I've been very popular of mine is actually 2 bison grazing in opposite directions. And when they got right there, I shot, and it looked like they're fighting, but they're probably 3 or 4 feet apart, going opposite directions. But everybody thinks it's a fighting shot. And then I think the very next one, we had elk show up on the ridge. I got this line of elk lining up there on the ridge with another sunrise. This thing has been called, now it's renamed Sunrise Ridge. And everybody in the state knows about Sunrise Ridge and Maxwell Wildlife Refuge. People's photos started showing up in travel magazines here locally, regional travel magazines, and in newspapers and brochures about things to do in Kansas. And all of a sudden, Maxwell's on the everybody's bucket list as a place to go photograph.
Hey, Jim, we have some comments. Sorry for the interruption.
That's fine.
Stephen Gatto actually made some nice recommendations. He said we should have a lead-in video so Alec and Juan and I could talk about that. But he said he missed hearing which herd this was. Where are the bison? So maybe you could just say that again, although I know you just said it. And then there's a couple of others. So.
Yeah, it's Maxwell Wildlife Refuge. And if you go online and look for it, there are 2 Maxwells. One's a national, one's a state. This is a state refuge. It's about 3,000 acres, has bison and elk.
Canton, Kansas.
It's near Canton, Kansas, which doesn't tell you much because it's pretty much 60 miles north of Wichita and 30 miles south of I-70. And they offer tours out there, although right now the tours are shut down because of the pandemic. We can't take people out. But it's a fabulous place. These are all purebred, and there's no mixed in the herd at all.
That's cool.
Try to keep it that way.
And Stephen also says, this is how he got started with his zoo photography. He volunteered his photos, and now he gets special privileges. So for our members, I think this is really a good thing to do, right? Volunteer. And so that's good. And Jay Grammon's always here. He says, hello from Minnesota. So, we have a good group. So go ahead, Jim. Just wanted to pass along some nice comments that you're getting.
Well, we had every outing is a little different. This is a foggy morning with an elk moving along, and I've got the layers in there like we've talked about for, again, silhouetted, but the layers really work out well when you have fog and showing depth to the photo. And this beautiful elk walking along there. Again, just before sunrise, fog in the low areas. We have some fog going on there, and then the sun isn't up yet. We started doing the things way before sunrise. We leave at 6 and get out there at 6:15, and we're up bright and early. People start showing up at 5:30 for these things. So. can't do them in the summer because you have to be out there at 4.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I made the mistake of Susan and I made a mistake of leading a workshop out west at the end of June, and we had to get up at 3:45, right, to get to the spot. Yeah, so this is a good advice. Don't do landscape workshops in the summer.
No. This is, again, one of the groups. It's an iPhone shot. And, if the animals are far enough away, we let people get off the trams and move out and set up tripods and shoot. And I just, rather than take pictures of the animals, I got enough pictures of them. I just took pictures of the photographers. And then we were very fortunate that one time we had elk right there with us and the sun coming up. And this is with a Canton 300-2.8. And man, it was just one of those mornings that you dream about.
Yes. And look at that silhouette.
Beautiful.
Just spectacular. I actually had one of these. I put it on the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation Facebook page, and I got 300 inquiries. Where is that? It's in Kansas. They said, where is it really? It's in Kansas. Nobody believed me because it's, they're Rocky Mountain elk. Well, that's because Rocky Mountain elk were there because the hunters drove them all out of the plains in the 1800s. After the FYBO outings, Betty said, what do you want to do next? So now all of a sudden, instead of me trying to follow, I'm kind of leading. So it's okay, let's do some other things. Let's do like flowers. Let's do babies and bison tours, because she was already doing those for the locals. Let's do them for photographers as well. So we started leading trips out, in the afternoon and to photograph the babies and the bison. We could do it in the morning and the afternoon. Middle of the day, they kind of bed down, but that worked out pretty well to do those. And then we had some sunset outings we started doing. Summertime with the flowers, the bison and the babies and that grass that's so deep, and the flowers all over the place. And then the fall flowers, we did just flower outings. Go out and photograph the flowers. And those have worked out quite well. Again, for photographers, there's plenty to do out there. This is a mother with 2 babies for some reason.
Oh, I love the background on that.
Yeah, the fall colors are spectacular out there. And my favorite time out there is in the fall. It's really, really beautiful. Another animal in the fall colors and the light. This is sunset light on them. And again, just like with the elephants in Africa, if you're going to make them look big, get a big lens and get tight on them.
Right.
This is a bison shot, and you say, "Holy cow, these things are massive." Well, they are. They're very big, and you can't tell it when you just have the bison out there in the grass. You can't tell how big they are, but when you take that big telephoto lens and compress them right up against it, they're just overpowering how big they really are.
Hey, Jim, Stephen has a question, and obviously he's like you and Juan and myself and all the wildlife photographers that we know. We research the subject, so you know a lot about the subject. And Stephen's making comments about that. The red dogs, right? The baby bison on the photograph, that they look better in the winter. But he has a question for you. He says, does he generally carry 2 cameras to avoid changing lenses? Good question, Stephen.
Actually, my wife goes along, so I carry 3 cameras. So I generally have a big telephoto on one, a zoom on the other, and then I have a wide angle on the third. And then my phone, obviously I use the phone for some things, but not very often. Again, another sunset evening with the grass. And by the way, it's basically on the fringe of the tall grass prairie. So how do you make the grass look tall? You get down, you shoot through the grass. So now, instead of just saying it's a bison on the prairie, it's a bison on the tall grass prairie. Yeah. With the grass sticking up, now you got the feeling of the tall grass, and you're basically showing it for what it is. And about, I guess it was 2 years ago, I got a call from the Refuge, and they said, hey, we got a film crew from New York going to be here. They want to video this stuff. We're going to do about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, no, tell them 4 o'clock, and I'll meet them out there. So I came out. Betty wanted me to come out and kind of help out. So we went out and shot the sunset, and we were able to maneuver the animals where we wanted them with the feed truck and the walkie-talkies, so we get them lined up where we wanted. These guys were shooting Cannon video equipment, but I don't think they had very big lenses. And I was shooting video at the same time. This is a screen grab from a 4K video that I was shooting. And it's just, if you can maneuver them where you want them and you get the animals in the right place, you get some really spectacular photos. Last year, we have our Great Plains Nature Photographers meeting every November, Rick, which, you came and did for us 4 years ago, I think. The evening before, we do a sunset tour out at Maxwell. And last year we had, again, we're able to maneuver the animals where we wanted them. There were only about 5 big, what we call breeder bulls out there together. And we got them in the sunset and move off far enough so you can compress them with the telephoto lens and get these kind of shots. Occasionally I will shoot a wide angle shot or a medium shot to show both the terrain and the number of animals and how they're spread out and they're migratory. And then you can see the little calves moving along with them. So what do I get out of this, right? Other than some really great photos, I've kind of, my friends that know me, the ones locally call me Mr. Maxwell. I've got a good friend, Jeff Heidel. He's Mr. Maxwell Jr. now. He's kind of taking over a lot of the stuff that I was doing and leading some of these trips. But I got keys to the place, and I've got 24/7 access out there, so I can go out anytime I want. The only rule is I can't drive my own truck. I have to go get one of the state trucks, which are big 4-wheel drive trucks. So that's kind of an advantage. The other thing I do is I have done workshops at the Refuge and the Visitor Center, workshops on wildlife photography and on Lightroom classes, just whatever we can think of to do to attract people out there. Having access there 24/7 is helpful, but even from this shot was taken from the county road going through the Refuge.
Wow.
I was out there with my good friend. Yeah, I was out there with my good friend Jeff, and his 4-wheel drive truck, because the snow was pretty deep. And they must have thought we were a feed truck because they were walking towards us. Gave us some really good photo opportunities. I think I've got Betty trained now, because we were out there, Jeff and I were out there one time shooting, and it was starting to snow. And she actually called and said, "Where are you guys? It's starting to snow out here." I said, "We're 5 minutes from the Refuge." She said, "I'll meet you there and hop in one of the trucks and go out and photograph in the winter." This guy's charging down the hill towards us because he thinks the gate's open and he's going to be able to get out. Didn't quite make it. Another one where kind of a shot that I've lusted after for a while is a winter shot with both bison and elk in it. And these guys were out there together and little snowflakes blowing by. I was able to get that shot, which has been on my bucket list. I've got bucket lists of shots I want to take out there. So, and again, just enough depth of field to show that is an elk in the background. You don't wonder what it is. And then this is a shot that, but Jeff again was out there with me on this shot, and this guy's walking on and breathing, and his breath would condense. I've got video of this and stills, but you can just see the film crew was asking about wintertime. They said, "Do you get like that nice smooth round snow?" I said, "You don't understand. This is Kansas. We have grass that's chest deep in places, and we have 40-mile-an-hour winds. So the snow doesn't pile up; it goes somewhere else. But we do have some good snow opportunities with the grasses there." One of the bulls was laying down and the snow blowing. I used a slow shutter speed. This is down to about a 20th of a second, and you have to shoot quite a few to get that blur in that snow without the animal being blurred or the camera shaking or vibrating. So I shot 5 or 6 shots to make sure I caught that. And then I did go out there. We took my truck, got in one of the state trucks, and went out, and there was a an elk and a mother and a baby. It's the first time I've ever seen a family group of elk. And it was snowing pretty hard, and I shot 4K video of this, also shot still shots of it. I got back home that afternoon and put these on Facebook, and I got a call from TV channel in Wichita, a friend of mine that works there, and he said, "Can we use your still photos? How would you like to have 4K video?" He said, "You're kidding, you got 4K video of this?" I said, "Sure." So I Dropboxed them 4K video, and they used it on the news that night, talking about the storm and what was going on at Maxwell. And then one more photo I've got from out there, and this is a herd of bison. Jeff and I, again, Jeff Heidel, my good friend, he and I were out there together, and we stopped, and we're on the county road, but it's not in the refuge. We've got a fence between us and them. And I went over to the fence and shot through the fence, and it looked cold, but I was shooting a fast shutter speed, and the snow was just little dots stopped everywhere. So I went to a slower shutter speed so you could tell the wind was moving it. And when you have those blurred snowflakes, it actually looks much, much colder because you're factoring in the wind and the wind chill that's occurring at the same time. The secret to all of this is go find something local and become in their face. Basically get in their face. Donate some images to them they can use for publicity. I even made up, and I don't know if this shows up or not, but I made up brochures for them to give out.
I think you have to stop screen sharing. Is that right, Alec?
Here, I switched it back. So you can do it again, Jim.
Okay, well, I made up these trifolds that have, all the information about how to get out there, and I donated to them. They had hundreds of them printed out there, and they're in those little folders in every motel in the state now. And it's all my photos, and they're not great, but they're okay. They're small, but you get the point. People want to come out there and see it when they can pick up a brochure and they read about it. It's got a map that shows where it is, and that's the kind of thing you have to do if you want to get your foot in the doors of these places. Is go out there and get in their face and show them what you can do, and all of a sudden you get adopted. You become part of the team, and I even volunteer out there now. Sometimes I drive the tow vehicle. And if you're driving the tow vehicle, you have the cameras on the seat beside you. Towing the tram, you're out there with them, but you don't have all the people around you. So you can get a better opportunity for photography. And
awesome.
That's it.
Well,
coming up.
Well, thank you so much. We got some great comments here. Some people saying that, you have to be there. I think Linda said, yeah. They're nice shots, but you have to get off your couch, right, Alec?
Jay commented you have to get off your couch. Linda commented that there's power when you're committed to a subject.
Yeah.
And and I think that's really a powerful message from what Jim said is he got committed, altruistic goals to help out and promote, what he saw in his community, and now people across the country, across the world are enjoying these images. So it's a really cool story and a great way to spend some time on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, Diane Beck says, I love that you reached out and donated, shared your expertise. Must be very rewarding. I know it is. And Stephen Gotts again says, my zoo had a silent auction to raise money to feed animals during the shutdown. A 16 by 20 inch print I shot went for $1,100. Yeah. A photo tour of the zoo led by me. And a photo tour led by me went for $1,400. So, Stephen, maybe we're going to have you on one of these pop-up sessions sometimes. Because he's very active here and is an amazing photographer. And Gretchen Cole says she's been to Maxwell with Jim many times.
Yeah.
And is a fantastic place. And any other comments that I missed, Alec?
I think you hit the highlights, but in general, people were just very very excited and into seeing the images and enjoyed the presentation.
Good.
Cool.
It's kind of it's one of those places that's in the backyard. And you've got one. Everybody's got one in their backyard.
Yes.
They just don't. You got to get out and find it.
Jim, do you have a favorite image?
Do I have?
I'm looking at them. I think the silhouettes. A lot of people like the bison in with the snow.
Yeah.
You'd have to. Yeah. Okay. Maybe you want to share again. Jim is showing the one with the bison perfectly silhouetted against the sun there.
Yeah, that was absolutely amazing. That was that was the most cooperative they've been. The bison. I mean, it's all. I mean, they're wild animals.
Yeah. Right.
So you can do whatever you want to with a walkie-talkie. They can't understand English very well, so you use the feed truck to kind of maneuver them in. Right. And I've had one of the comments I got one time was, well, that you're feeding them so they're not wild. I said, we feed them because they can't migrate anymore. There's fences all over this country, so we have to do supplements for them.
Well, that's a whole nother discussion, and Juan and I actually talked about that, about feeding animals. And, if you're against feeding animals, don't put up a hummingbird feeder in your backyard, I say, right?
Absolutely.
And also talk about, captive animals. I don't know about the places you go to in Tanzania, Jim, but the private game reserves that we go to in Africa, they're all fenced, right?
Well, Tanzania, they're not.
In Tanzania, in Botswana. The ones we go to in Botswana, we are, and in Kenya. So there are restrictions there. But that might be a good topic, Alec. We should keep that in mind. Photographing captive animals, like in Fossil Rim Wildlife Center. And my feeling is you learn a lot. You learn a lot about the animals, and you develop a greater appreciation for how much we need to protect them. So I'm all for conservation centers, wildlife preserves, like Fossil Rim, like Maxwell's, and all these other places.
One of my best-selling photos was taken at Fossil Rim.
Yeah.
It's a giraffe with its face was like this far from my 7mm wide-angle lens, and I took a shot, moved it away, and a big tongue came out. It was going to lick my lens. So.
Yeah. Well, Alec has. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm through. Yeah.
Yeah, Alec has been there, and for the folks who don't know what Fossil Rim Wildlife Center is, it's about an hour and a half from south from Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, in Glen Rose, Texas, right. And I think it's almost 2,000 acres, and they have giraffes running around, zebra. Actually, I heard of wildebeest, cheetahs that you could photograph behind a fence, but if you use a long lens, hold the lens close to the fence and use a wide aperture, it looks like they would take it in the wild. And they're actually the largest breeding center for cheetahs, I think, I know in the United States and maybe in the world. So they do a great job in education. So it's closed now. I think might have opened due to the pandemic, but it's called Fossil Rim Wildlife Center. And Alec, you had a blast there, right?
Oh, it was fantastic. It was my first experience doing wildlife photography, so I'd like to go back there again when we can get back there for sure again to work on my skills some more. But just fascinating to see the variety of animals, right? To learn about the animals, because not only are you getting great images, but the guides are very knowledgeable and they're taking you through and explaining things to you. It's just it's just fantastic. And there are places like that all around the country that need our support, right? So we sometimes neglect, and I think the gyms is a great lesson here. We take for granted those things that are closest to us now, perhaps more than ever, when they need our creativity, help, and support as they try to work their way through where we are with the pandemic.
One more comment, Rick. My first time to Fossil Rim, I showed up with white lenses, camera gear hanging all from me, and I went in and the lady said, "Oh, it's nice to meet you, Rick." I said, "What?" She said, "Are you Rick Sammon? You're here a day early." I said, "No, I know who Rick Sammon is, but it's not me." And they thought I was you. So I did get preferential treatment, but because I knew you. But
that's pretty funny.
That's hilarious.
That's a great way. Go ahead.
And Phyllis does report Fossil Rim, because she's our eyes on the ground there. Says it is partially open.
Oh, that's great. That
so
is
you can
great.
reach out, check the website, find out what you can and can't do and see there. But if you're close, you should certainly check it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Phyllis is amazing. She's on vacation in Maine, having lobster rolls with her husband Jack Lawless. So thank you, Phyllis, for tuning in. I don't know. I guess you have satellite connection in your RV there, your giant RV that you guys are towing around. So anyway, thank you, Phyllis. Thank you, Alec, for setting this up. Jim, People loved your photographs. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
I'm on Facebook, so that's probably the easiest way. Just
I'll send you a message here. And we want to thank our members. Again, we're at 2,000 members, so tell your friends, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your neighbors. We're continuing to grow, and we're having a blast doing it. So thank you, everybody, so much.
See you later.
So long.